In 2004, my husband and I found out we were pregnant. And the beginning of the pregnancy was fairly normal, no issues. We had already had a child, but we had a miscarriage in between. And we just moved along in the pregnancy. And then when it was time to have our ultrasound, to find out if we were having a boy and a girl and making sure that everything was okay, we found out that there was an issue. The ultrasound tech noticed pretty much right away that there was a problem, even though she was not quite sure what it may be. So she took us to a room so that we could talk to the doctor, and of course I was already upset and scared. And we were then referred out to go to a perinatal office. So I made my perinatal appointment. I think I went to that appointment by myself that particular day, and we had some extra ultrasounds done, and I still was thinking everything is going to be fine. And at that time, I was told that our child, our beautiful baby girl, had A.V.M, Arteriovenous Malformation, something I had never heard of. And I was also asked if I wanted to continue with the pregnancy. Of course, there was no way I'm going to end my pregnancy. No way at all. So I went along, and he put me in touch with a pediatric neurosurgeon who could go over the tapes and give us more information. My husband was with me at that appointment. The pediatric neurosurgeon was able to tell me that with an A.V.M, it can either be mild, hardly any issues, or it can be catastrophic. The unfortunate part of this is ours was found in utero, which does not happen a lot. So you cannot make repairs or surgeries or do anything in utero at that time. So we were to continue on with our perinatal appointments. Pretty much we had weekly ultrasounds and monitored the A.V.M. An A.V.M is basically, there's no capillary in the main artery, and this can cause seizures, heart failure. The baby may be born and all their organs are shut down, just a number of things, but we are still in the unknown of what may happen. So as we continued our appointments, I was a high-risk pregnancy, and I continued to work, and everything was okay. One of the things that we did run into was placenta previa, which was just a low-lying placenta, and I was on bed rest for a week, and other than that, her A.V.M was not getting any larger, so we were just in the process of maintaining the ultrasounds, keeping an eye on the pregnancy, just really preparing to get me to at least 32 weeks without issues. And at that time, we were also put in touch with another family through the pediatric neurosurgeon that had a little boy who had an A.V.M, except his was found after birth. They didn't know there was an issue ahead of time. So I corresponded with emails with this family, and it kind of helped me understand what we were looking at. We were looking at, possible me not being able to work and stay home with our daughter. We were looking at medications, feeding tubes, all the things. So at that time, we were hopeful and excited and reading and researching and all of the information that we had. And I knew that this baby was going to make it. That's all I knew in my mind. My heart, my soul, my mind was that our daughter was going to make it. I was basically trying to control it myself is what I was trying to do. Around 28 weeks into my pregnancy, Gabrielle was not moving for the day. It started out as the day. I remember my husband saying, just let's eat some chili cheese fries, which I did, because that's what I craved with her. And then I had been told, to eat a snack, lay on your left side, see if the baby will move. Now, she was a very active baby, lots of kicking and movement prior to this. So, of course, when she wasn't moving, I was worried, but I did all the things that I was told to do to see if she would move. So into the evening, when she still wasn't moving, we made the decision for me to go to the hospital. My husband did stay home with our son to get him off to school and not worry him. And I went on to the ER, or labor and delivery, and they were doing monitors and checking me, and hooked me up, and they were saying that there was a heart rate, but she basically wasn't moving. It's kind of like they called it a flat heart rate. So they would need to admit me. One, I was not breathing well, and in fact, this was when I was diagnosed with asthma, and we needed just to have more tests done. So I was having issues. They admitted me. I was still very positive for the fact that we still had a heartbeat. I was still positive. No one could tell me that I was going to lose my daughter still. I was headstrong in that. And so my husband was at the hospital with me. I think that was a 5-day stay, 4 or 5 days. And I remember, I had the group that I went to that was perinatal doctors were seeing me while I was in the hospital. And there was one in particular, one that I had never seen before, who came to my bedside. And he basically was telling me that even a baby at a healthy pregnancy and then a baby at 28 weeks doesn't always, there's trouble there. That was his way of letting me know, hey, this baby's not going to make it, I believe. But he didn't have good bedside manner. And I wanted my other perinatal doctor who was more caring and nurturing. The nurses did not really like his bedside manner. He was very upsetting, abrasive, but intelligent just the same. And so we made the decision once I was stabilized, they had me on medications for asthma, that they would discharge me. And then the very next day, I would go to the office, the perinatal office in Atlanta, and do some additional ultrasounds and more extensive ultrasounds, which we did go. My mother and my husband was with me. My husband had seen every ultrasound, pretty much almost all of my ultrasounds for some weeks. So he was looking at it and he clearly could see there was a problem. But me, I don't even think I was looking at the ultrasound as much. I still was in the mindset of everything was going to be okay. They did have to take us back to the room to discuss the issue with the outcome of the ultrasounds. And I was still positive, and you couldn't tell me any different. And so they took us into the room. And while we were sitting in the room, I remember the doctor that was there basically calling our other doctor on the phone because he wasn't in the office with us. And they both talked to me and explained that there was no hope for Gabrielle. She was not going to survive. And they were going to have to get in touch with my OB's office to set me up to deliver her by C-section. And basically the umbilical cord is what was keeping her alive. That was her life support. Once that umbilical cord was cut, that ended her life support. I screamed, and and cried. And I remember I remember my husband standing up against the wall, of course, tearful. My mother was beside me. I was telling them that I didn't want them to deliver my baby for my sake. Because I was in the mindset, if anything happened to me, my husband could take care of our child. I was very upset. They did have to check my blood pressure and things like that before we left the office. And all I remember is in the car, my husband's driving, my mom's in the back seat, and we're riding, and my husband is asking, how are we going to explain to our son Michael that his sister's not coming home? Because he was excited for this baby coming too. We drove to my mother's or my mother-in-law's place of employment so that we could tell her in person. Rodney just needed to talk to his mom and let her know. And so we went on home. I remember everyone coming over throughout the day, just our family, just trying to be there in comfort, not knowing what to say, but just be there with us. I went all day, all the rest of that evening. My baby's not moving, of course. I'm at home. I know the outcome, so that was an emotional turmoil in my mind. And I remember we went into the next day, and my OB's office still had not called me. And so I called my perinatal doctor to ask him if he had gotten in touch with, with my OB's office. And apparently the doctor that was on call was saying that they would have to have a meeting the following Tuesday, and they do not deliver babies for the mother's mental well-being in these situations. And he was trying to explain that it was more than that. The baby was going to pass anyway, and my body was basically shutting down and deteriorating along in the process. As far as breathing, I couldn't walk across the room, fluid building up, all of those things. So he said he would try to get through to another doctor. Well, this was very upsetting for my husband. It was upsetting for me, but we're just sitting there waiting in limbo, not knowing what to do, And so, lo and behold, we did get in touch. The doctor got in touch with someone, and so I remember our doctor calling me, and she's like, "You're pre-registered. Have you eaten today?" And I was like, "No." And she was like, "Okay, you can go ahead and go to the hospital." And so we drove to the hospital, knowing that I was going to be admitted and I would be delivering this beautiful child, and she would not be living very long after the delivery. So we were admitted into the hospital and labor delivery, and a nurse came and explained to me the entire process of how Nikki would follow us through the entire process. We would have the C-section. They would have a christening gown for our little girl, and they would have her baptized right after delivery. And all the things that I didn't think about. I didn't have anything for Gabrielle to wear. I had not bought anything for Gabrielle, and I think that was my way of not preparing for her to come home, and then her not coming home. It's just strange how the mind and heart works. So they were very gentle with us. They explained the entire process. My mother, my oldest nephew, Michael, my son, my mother-in-law, and my husband and I were all at the hospital. Of course, I was. We went back into the delivery room. I apparently was having contractions, and I do believe now, looking back, that my body knew what was happening. I believe God knew what was happening. Of course, God knows, but I know my body was basically in the process of having Gabrielle through the contractions, knowing that she wasn't going to survive. But they took me back for the C-section, and my husband was by my side. I was having a very, very hard time emotionally, and I was crying, and I was scared, and I remember the anesthesiologist, he wanted to give me something to calm me down, and my husband let him know, you can give her something, but she wants to be awake and aware of what is going on. And I did. And he did give me something to calm me a little bit. I remember one of the nurses, she remembered me from my stay just a few days earlier, and she asked me, what happened to my positive girl? Because I was so positive the whole time. And I was like, well, now I know what's going to happen, so I don't have anything to be positive about. I already know. I had even asked the doctor to tie my tubes so that I don't have to go through this again. And she said, we're not going to do that. While you're in this state, we're not going to tie your tubes or tube. One, I only had one. And we went through with the C-section. So my little girl was delivered. They carried her over. And the first thing I asked was, does she have your chin, to my husband? Because that's what I always asked. That's what I asked. That's what I asked for Michael. Like, does he have your chin? And so Rodney, my husband, went over there with her while she was being baptized by the chaplain. He held her little hand, and then he decided to leave the operating room to go to be with our family. And I remember the anesthesiologist letting me know that it was my time with our daughter. And he handed me this beautiful baby little girl. And I held her in my arms. They took pictures of her. We have her first bath. They got her little feet and her facial features. And I got to hold her and talk to her. And her heart was still beating. And she was still alive, even though she would never take her own breath. She was just like a sleeping little doll. But I had my time with her by myself for a few minutes at that time before they would be rolling me down to our room with my family. And I held her as they rolled me down to that room. While we were all in the room, I held Gabrielle for a length of time, but I did let her go to my mother-in-law, my mom, Michael, my son, my oldest nephew, Darius. Everyone held her. My husband did not hold her. He had held her hand while she was baptized, loved on her in that way, but holding tiny babies, I don't know. It's not something that he ever did on the regular right away. And maybe, it could have been too much holding her. But he was with her while she was baptized, and I couldn't be with her while they baptized her because I was on the operating table. So I'm grateful that her daddy held her hand while she was baptized. Everyone held her, and then she came back to me, and her heart was still beating. She would live over an hour. The NICU unit monitored her vitals so that they call the time of death. So her heart stopped beating while she was in my arms. So I always say, I was with her when she left this world, that I was with her, which it's a spiritual thing for me, because as upset as I was, that was the most tender, precious moment that I could have ever had with my child, with my only daughter. And, but when you're holding a baby like that, they get a little cold. And so my husband just looked at me from across the room, and, he was just kind of a signal that we'd go ahead and let them take her, while she was warm, and, and just say our goodbyes then. And so, they took her, and then of course we prepared for me to be moved to another room. Our family left, things like that. I was in the hospital, I think 4 days, and one of the things that I think my husband was part of the decision making in that is that we were going to have her cremated, but we were not going to have a service because reliving it. And I was still in the hospital at this time. And I had a friend that was a funeral director that was able to handle everything too. So they came to the hospital and set everything up so that we could handle that piece of it, which took a lot of stress from me in that time. So during my hospital stay, they gave me a little brown bear, they call it a share bear, but it's just like holding, the weight of a baby, hold a baby, because they told me that grieving mothers, hold this bear when they don't have their baby to hold. Everyone was very nurturing and very caring during my stay. I couldn't have asked for any better in that area. So what happened was I went through my healing and my walking and all the things that you have to do recovering from a C-section. But I also was having to work through emotions as well. I don't know if I was just, the reality had not hit or not. But then came the time for us to go home. Things that I learned that they do before you go home, or while you're in the hospital when you lose a baby, is the baby is placed in what they call a mini morgue. They keep the babies there because grieving mothers sometimes want to see their child before they ever leave the hospital again. And I was given that option, and I declined. Did not want to see my baby again, because I felt like you have to deal with even more pain, I would say, sometimes, because your baby's no longer warm. And in our case with the A.V.M, Gabrielle had basically her death was because of a brain hemorrhage, heart failure. She could not swallow. There was a number of things, but it caused some bruising on her head, her little forehead, and things. And so seeing her again, I think would have been more traumatizing for me. So I did not choose that. But what happened was, when it came time for discharge, I had a breakdown. I would say it was a mini breakdown, because the reality set in that I was leaving this hospital and I was not taking my daughter with me. I wasn't taking her with me. And so that was where the emotions started to kick in. But I worked through it. Then, when we left the hospital, I wasn't good on my feet walking, but had my husband take me to the mall, get a wheelchair that they had there, take me to the Build-A-Bear, picked out a white teddy bear and all the little clothes, angel dress and all, and we took that bear to the funeral home, and which the funeral home gave us the idea, So they placed her urn inside this bear, and that is our Gabrielle bear. And so we took her home with us, and we even went to my mother-in-law's workplace to see her and take our Gabrielle bear on our way home. And I felt like I was so positive, and my spirit was so good during that time. But I had her ashes in a necklace. I had her urn. She was going home with us, and that was the most tender, special moment that I will ever be able to explain. And I continue to celebrate her life. The healing from this is a process, and that'll be something I speak on again. Healing from the loss of Gabrielle, it was not very easy in the beginning. I cannot say if I was ready to heal when I came home. As I was emotional and I was sad, and there was some dark moments. But what I can say is that I tried all the little things and all the things that I could to remember her, celebrate her, and really truly go through what I consider my grieving process. And one of the things for me when I came home, I held on to my share bear. It was the bear that was given to me a lot, trying to sleep just to get through the emotions, because I didn't have my daughter. I didn't have my baby home. Yes, I had another child. We had our oldest son, and having him was good, because that's where your focus goes. It goes on your other child and making sure the house runs and making sure your baby's okay. But there was still a loss there. So one of the things was, on her first birthday, we went on a trip to Charlotte, North Carolina with friends and family. That was to get me out of the house, but also just, to enjoy a weekend, which would have been a hard weekend. And I had a great weekend, but also on that same weekend, we found out that we were pregnant with our youngest son. And so it was special, even through some sadness. That was my gift. That was my gift. He was my gift that weekend. But I still was remembering Gabrielle that all weekend. And then another thing was scrapbooking. I made a complete scrapbook of Gabrielle, all the mementos, pictures, whatever I had. Of course, it's not a lot, because you only have this baby that lived for an hour, and all the things that the NICU provided for us was so special. So scrapbooking. I wrote to her in that scrapbook. I had some hard moments, and I could just go in the scrapbook and write. I also, our family, we took a trip, not a trip, but we went down to the ice skating rink in Atlanta, and we did some ice skating, took pictures of our family, took our Gabby bear, our Gabrielle bear, which is our white Build-A-Bear, with her ashes. Her urn is inside there. We dress that bear every year, pretty much. Graduation year for her was cap and gown. Angel dress was at the beginning. She's had jeans, Skechers, glasses, all the little things. This is our Gabby memorial. And so we've included in pictures, and we've included in our life. And that's part of a healing process too. I've done lots of reading online, reading books, all the things as far as surviving through losing a child and not knowing your child. The boys and I have released balloons and lit candles, for Remembrance Day. We've went and had a mini photo shoot where the boys held our picture of Gabrielle in just their hands. That's pictures of, so that I have picture of all three of my kids. I have my good days and I have my bad days each year. So the holidays are really hard for me. So that is a time where I'm a little more gentle with myself. I let myself feel what I'm going to feel, but I also do productive things. Anyone who's going through this, I'm going to suggest, if you like the beach, go to the beach. If you like the lake, go to the lake. If you need a moment to yourself, take the moments to yourself. If you need a hot bubble bath, take a hot bubble bath. If you just need to sit with God and listen and really listen to what He may be telling you, then do that. It's whatever is for you. Because for me, my healing process is sharing. Okay, I love to share. I share everything about her, every memory, every thought from that day. I share. I don't keep it a hush-hush. I don't keep it silent. I just want to share. All these little angel babies mattered. So whether it was a miscarriage, whether it was early loss, whether it was late loss, whether the babies came home and then you lost them, all of that matters. So it's whatever it looks like. So for me, my grieving was writing to her, remembering her, thinking of her, celebrating her, and really just handling myself with a little self-care. So at the end of it all, we will never forget, and we will have rough days, especially birthdays and holidays and things like that. But as long as we're celebrating, I believe wholeheartedly that we will heal from this and continue to help others. And that's my personal goal.